Oh, Kyrgyzstan. This country has seemingly come out of nowhere to take the world by storm. If you are like me, then your social media feeds were likely flooded with visions of hidden lakes surrounded by snow-capped summits, the thundering hooves of galloping horses, and travelers bundling up in the confines of a cozy yurt. It was a life so detached from what most of us know, and it depicted freedom and adventure in its rawest form. I just had to see what it was all about, and if Kyrgyzstan truly did deliver on its promises of rugged mountain ranges and pristine landscapes. Spoiler alert, it did. Minus the cinematic yellow filter that seems to be mandatory for every Kyrgyzstan travel video. I won't lie, I came into the country without much of a plan, but even as I fumbled my way around this Central Asian gem, spending nearly a month to do what organized group tours do in 2 weeks, I grew more and more enamored with Kyrgyzstan. And even with all those wrong turns and missing permits, I got an excellent grasp of just how beautifully diverse Kyrgyzstan is. Alpine lakes, desert canyons, horseback treks, endless mountain ranges, and the rich cultural heritage of the nomads, Kyrgyzstan is jam-packed with all of it. Without further ado, here is my Kyrgyzstan travel itinerary, from the can't-miss highlights to the surprises and happy little accidents that I found along the way. First things first, how are we going to get here? The easiest way is to start in Kyrgyzstan's largest city, Bishkek. The Kyrgyz capital will have the best prices for international flights, although I would also recommend flying into Almaty in the neighboring country of Kazakhstan. It is one of the coolest cities that I've ever been to, and if you have a few days or weeks to spare, Kazakhstan is well worth exploring. From Almaty, it is a 5-hour bus ride to Bishkek, which can be worth it since Almaty typically has more budget-friendly flights and more frequent routes than Bishkek. And while Bishkek isn't a favorite of many travelers, it does serve as a good place to start our itinerary. It is a big city with solid infrastructure and Western comforts, so perfect for getting settled in and finding your footing in Kyrgyzstan. Explore the area around Alatu Square, filled with parks and Soviet monuments and architecture. I highly recommend popping into the State History Museum, as it will help provide context to the country that you are about to dive into. Plus, I'm a sucker for swords and ancient warriors, and this museum is chock full of them. I also love the gardens around this area, filled with cafes, beer gardens, boutiques. Bishkek is low-key a pretty trendy city. The contrast between the ugly Khrushchevkas and brutalist architecture, and then the cute cafes and maximalist decor lights a fire in me. Honestly, a great city for remote work and digital nomadism for those of you that partake. Osh Bazaar is also worth exploring for a few hours. Come here to pick up some affordable last-minute hiking gear and some Kyrgyz swag, as well as local hiking snacks. I was a big fan of kurut, the balls of dried horse cheese, a favorite among nomadic horsemen for its nutrient-dense portability. The flavor grows on you, I promise. However, the highlight of Bishkek for me was a detour to Ala Archa National Park. Once you've explored the city and gotten your feet set, take the public bus to the entrance of the national park. The entrance fee is only 200 som, about $2.50, and combined with round-trip public transport, this is a $4 day trip for the ages. The Aksai waterfalls are the main attraction for day hikers, so try to make your way up there. It is a good way to get acclimatized and warm up those hiking legs. And honestly, for a first hike in Kyrgyzstan, it is actually pretty stunning. I was pleasantly surprised since I wasn't expecting all that much, but between the dense alpine forests, the meandering rivers, stunning valleys, snow-capped mountains, there was a ton of beauty here. There is no better way to set the tone for Kyrgyzstan. After the hike, head back to Bishkek and eat dinner at my favorite restaurant, Navit, for some local cuisine. I know it's fancier and some consider it a tourist restaurant, but I personally love it. The decor, the food, and if you want to try horse meat, I'd say it's better to try beshbarmak at a reputable restaurant rather than from a random street stall. Rest up after the big meal and get ready for an early wake-up tomorrow. Before we go anywhere else, let's talk about transportation in Kyrgyzstan because it can be confusing and unreliable. Timetables, schedules, even departure points, these are all merely suggestions here in Kyrgyzstan. There aren't many resources online and you likely won't be able to book most of your transportation ahead of time. But somehow, it works, and one could argue that it is actually better that way. If people need to get somewhere, there will be a vehicle for you. Buses, private taxis, shared minivans, locally known as marshutkas, are the main forms of transportation here. For the most part, expect to rock up somewhere, hop in a privately owned car or van, and then wait for it to fill up. This could take an hour or longer, so I'd recommend timing your travel days for the early mornings when more people are on the move. As a foreigner, you will likely be charged more than the locals, which is annoying, but don't let it ruin your day. Now, on to the next destination. This itinerary could really go many different ways, especially because Bishkek is the main hub for so much of the traveling. You could literally get anywhere in the country from Bishkek. But for me, I wanted to jump straight into the horse riding culture of Kyrgyzstan, so I headed to the village of Kizart. I hopped on a marsrutka from the Avtovokzal station at about 6 a.m. and endured the 4-hour-long journey through speeding highways and bumpy dirt roads. I was dropped off on the side of the highway, walked another 20-30 minutes to the tiny village of Kizart, and met up with the quote-unquote agency that I was going with. I paid about $150 for a 3-day experience with food, accommodation, local guides, and horses included. I booked through the Tunduk hostel in Bishkek. I didn't even have to stay there. I just sent them a message on WhatsApp and waited until they found me a group to join and split the costs with. This was a spectacular experience, although my butt still kind of hurts when I think about it. I had never really ridden horses before, and maybe 30 minutes was the longest stretch I had ever been on horseback prior to this. Now I was committed to over 5 hours a day for 3 days straight. Absolutely worth it though. If 3 days sounds like too long, you can look into shorter trips. The first day was spent riding through the valley before sleeping at a yurt camp at the foot of the mountain pass. The next day, we crossed that mountain pass before descending down to Song Kul, a massive high-altitude lake that felt like another planet. It was simply surreal up here, definitely a highlight of my time in Kyrgyzstan. If you want that iconic Kyrgyzstan on horseback experience, this is where you will want to go. We spent another night in a yurt, and then we descended back to Kizart the following morning to close out the 3-day horseback trek. I have 2 full videos of the Song Kul Lake adventure, so go check those out if you want more details. In this video, we will just be breezing through the country and covering the basics like where to go, how to get there, where to stay, and other relevant tidbits. Now, on to the next destination. From here, I had no idea what I was doing, so I backtracked towards Kochkor for a night to figure out my next moves. In hindsight, I would have just continued onwards to Naryn and Kelsu Lake. Keep in mind that you do need a permit for Kelsu Lake, so make sure to arrange that beforehand. It costs between $20 to $40 depending on how soon you need it, and you can apply for it online on the CBT Naryn website. Do it at least a week in advance to make sure you have it waiting for you upon arriving in Naryn. Seriously, there is very little to do in Naryn, and the extra days I spent there waiting for the permit that I tried to get while I was already there was an unfortunate waste of time. Eventually it did come, and I was on my way to Kelsu Lake. The tour was expensive, about $170 if you were traveling solo and couldn't find anyone to go with. Luckily, my few days in Naryn gave me time to literally go guest house to find other travelers until an Aussie couple let me join, and we brought the cost down to about $60 each. We left the next morning. Literally, my permit arrived after the taxi had already come to pick us up, so I was cutting it very close. It was a beautiful 3 to 4 hour drive to Kokia Valley, where I checked into my yurt camp by the river. After dropping my stuff off, I packed my day pack and began the hike to Kelsu. The landscapes here are breathtaking, some of the most surreal that I've seen in my life. The golden brown hills, the pristine turquoise river, the jagged mountains, the free-roaming horses and livestock everywhere, just non-stop beauty. Some of the most dramatic landscapes that you'll find in the country. And that was before we reached Kelsu Lake, which, I mean, no words necessary for this place. It is simply awe-inspiring. Afterwards, I slowly hiked back to camp, and by now, the reddish landscapes were amplified by the golden hour lighting. and I enjoyed this leisurely stroll through the valley before turning into a cozy night in my yurt. I had a slow morning, relaxing by the river before the taxi came to pick me up and take me back to Naryn. If you get back to Naryn early enough, you can try to make a break for Kochkor or Berkutchi, but likely you will have to spend the night at one or the other. It will help break up the journey, but staying in Naryn is fine too. The next morning, continue along the southern rim of Song Kul Lake to Bokonbayevo. I got dropped off in town and took a taxi to my accommodation somewhat in the middle of nowhere, but worth it to be smack dab in the stunning natural beauty of Kyrgyzstan. It was called Ilbir's guest house and I highly recommend it. It's a short walk from the lake, which I mean the waters here are just stunning. I did not expect this, especially looking at the surrounding desert canyons and the snow-capped mountains in the distance. You would never expect to be swimming at sparkling turquoise beaches like this. Kyrgyzstan is simply as well-rounded of a country as you can imagine. And I haven't even mentioned the culture that much, so let's talk about one of the coolest things you can do in Bokonbayevo, a highlight of my time in Kyrgyzstan, the eagle hunting demonstration. In this region of Kyrgyzstan, an ancient tradition endures. Bokonbayevo is famous for its Berkutchi, or eagle hunters. These Central Asian falconers, in addition to their prowess with a bow and arrow, are aided by golden eagles in order to catch their prey, providing meat for the eagle and pelts for the hunters. This is a tradition that goes back thousands of years, and I was lucky enough to join Tamerlan, a fourth-generation eagle hunter, for the day. And of course, the golden eagle herself, Sergak, who put her skills on display for us. This was such a fascinating experience, truly like stepping into a world that I knew nothing about. Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia are filled with these experiences that often feel like you have stepped into a parallel universe or gone back in time, and this was perhaps the pinnacle of that. While Kyrgyzstan is best known for its landscapes and natural beauty, I highly recommend looking into its nomadic heritage and traditions, many of which still persist to this day.
Okay. Yeah, he will hold it like all the time. Okay.
Another highlight of Bokonbayevo is Skazka Canyon, also known as Fairy Tale Canyon. The name is very fitting as it feels like you have stepped into a storybook, particularly the ridge that resembles a dragon's spine. It is about an hour's drive away from Bokonbayevo and well worth spending a few hours here hiking through its otherworldly canyons and geological formations. After Bokonbayevo, we continue towards the apex of our Kyrgyzstan trip, Karakol and the Ala Kul Trek. But first, I recommend making a detour to the small town of Jeti Oguz, which translates to 7 bulls. These refer to its dramatic red mountains jutting out of seemingly nowhere. I'll admit, part of why I went was so I could stay at a place called Face, but it turned out to be an excellent detour nonetheless. It really shows off the range that Kyrgyzstan has as a travel destination. Beyond its mountains, alpine lakes, cultural experiences, you also have these landscapes that seem like something you'd find in the arid deserts of Nevada and Utah. All of this just an hour's drive from some of the region's most breathtaking high-altitude trekking. Jeti Oguz is worth stopping by for a day or even spending the night if you want to take on one of the nearby hikes, but for now let's continue to Karakol. Here, we reach the climax of our Kyrgyzstan itinerary, the spectacular Ala Kul Trek, perhaps the most famous of Kyrgyzstan's travel destinations. But it doesn't come easy. I'd recommend spending a couple of days in Karakol beforehand to get everything sorted out if you haven't arranged a group tour or guided package already. Since I was doing it independently, I needed the time to pick up some gear and supplies, rent camping equipment, and meet other travelers to embark on the trek with. Plus, a little bit of acclimatization never hurt nobody. At first glance, I was fairly underwhelmed by Karakol as a city, especially considering it is the second largest in Kyrgyzstan. I was expecting it to be much livelier and much more happening, but it grows on you. It excels as a trekking base and has everything you need before you set off. There are some great hostels here too, like Karakol based hostel or KBH and Duet hostel, where I stayed. Not much to do in the city itself, a few impressive religious sites like the wooden church and the colorful Dungan Mosque, some decent cafes, a handful of good local restaurants, and an energetic bazaar area. There is enough to keep you occupied, and I enjoyed using it as my base for before and after the trek. After getting everything ready, I set off for the 4-day Ala Kul Trek. You can do it in fewer days or extend it to the longer and more challenging Aksu Traverse, but for me, 4 days was perfect. The first day, I took a taxi from Karakol to the national park and hiked somewhere between 15 to 20 kilometers to reach what is known as the second bridge. Another kilometer past here is the campsite where I pitched my tent, and this stunning meadow served as an excellent introduction to the Ala Kul Trek. Day 1 was long but fairly gentle, a lot of undulations and gradual inclines as opposed to relentless suffering. Great for warming up because the relentless suffering is not too far away, especially if the weather does not cooperate, which in my case it did not. Day 2 was one of the most brutal days of hiking I've ever had, over 1,000 meters of elevation gain to reach Ala Kul Lake, all of it spent getting assaulted by torrential downpour. I was cold, wet, muddy, miserable, exhausted, everything negative that you could think of. I almost gave up upon reaching Sarota Camp, a yurt camp about 2 hours short of Ala Kul Lake and popular among trekkers doing a 3-day itinerary. But I kept going, and I was rewarded with sunshine upon reaching the lake. The skies cleared up, and wow is all I can really say. Views like this make you forget the suffering almost immediately. Almost. I was still cold and wet and never really warmed up. After all, I was camping at about 3,500 meters above sea level, so I was freezing the whole night. A thin layer of snow greeted me the next morning, but luckily it was all sunshine the rest of the way. You'll warm up quickly as you climb up to the Ala Kul Pass, situated at 3,920 meters above sea level, and the highest point of the trek. Panoramic views of the lake, the vast valleys below, and the endless snow-capped mountain ranges extending far beyond the horizon. Kyrgyzstan is simply another planet. Though we reached the apex of the trek, day 3 continued to be a grind, and it was another 4 or 5 hours of non-stop descent and buckling knees before we reached the valley of Altyn Arashan. This place, I don't have any words for it. Honestly, it's just one of those places that you'd see in a movie and think it was green screened. I could probably spend the rest of my life rolling around this grass and be content. Oh, to be a wild horse galloping free right here. Stunning stuff. Day 4 takes us back to Karakol, a fairly uneventful hike along dirt road until you exit the national park on the Aksu side and catch a marshrutka back to the city, where you can feast on a hard-earned hot plate of lakhman. Again, just breezing through the destinations here. If you want to know more about Ala Kul, I go into much more detail on my 2-part series about the Ala Kul Trek. Everything you need to know will be over there. But some quick hits, the whole thing cost me about $60 for rental equipment, supplies, and transportation, compared to around $300 if you were to do a guided tour, or around $150 to $200 for unguided, but with accommodation in the yurt camps and guest houses. The whole distance was around 60 kilometers, about 2,000 meters of elevation gain, and about 2,500 meters of elevation drop. I walked the entire way, but there are horses available for some stretches, and an off-road vehicle can cut out both the first day and the last day entirely for a little over $100 per vehicle. But if you can, the walk is incredible. In hindsight, I'm sure I would not have said the same thing if you asked me in the midst of day 2's tempestuous trek. Type 2 fun at its finest, y'all.
Do not do this hike. I'll let you know if it's worth it when I actually reach the lake. But right now, I'm cold, I am wet, I just want a warm coffee, a shower, and a bed, but we're chugging along.
The same can be said for a lot of Kyrgyzstan. It is a challenging country that will push you to your limits and make you second guess your life choices every step of the way. Between its questionably safe trails, barrage of organized chaos, and Mother Nature throwing all of her elements at you, yeah, it's tough. But be open to all of it, because in Kyrgyzstan, you will receive all of it. And you will love it. Kyrgyzstan is a sensational travel destination for those craving something different, something wild, something unforgettable, and there is so much more to explore. I am barely scratching the surface of this country because I know I will be coming back to Kyrgyzstan time and time again. The biggest mistake that I feel people make while traveling is to try to do too much and stretch themselves too thin, not giving themselves enough time to enjoy each place, and reaching the point of burnout where you're just not having fun anymore. And in a place like Kyrgyzstan that is already out of so many people's comfort zones, it is hard to bounce back when you've crashed out. I know, there is so much more to do in Kyrgyzstan, but I truly believe that taking it slow is the best way to experience this country. Soak in the peace and the tranquility, talk to the elders and the locals, and leave some wiggle room for those unexpected side quests. For a first-timer traveling to Kyrgyzstan, I hope this itinerary serves you well, or at least serves as a useful starting point to build upon, because I did not even manage to graze the southern half of the country. Places like Osh, Sari Mogul, Lenin Peak, all of that is on my radar and should be on yours as well. Another time, perhaps, because that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all so much for watching. Rahmat to any of my Kyrgyz and Central Asian brothers out there. Don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you can stay tuned for more adventures from Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia, and beyond. I've been on the road for 10 years across almost 100 countries now, and the adventures just keep getting wilder and wilder, so stay tuned to see what I get up to. Appreciate you all. See you guys on the next video.